rank where the view is nothing less than phenomenal. For how I express and project from my abdominal. The only view better, both my daddy and my mama know. No living parents, my sons give me balance. My wife is my serenity, this mic is my identity. The world is foul enough, that's why I write without obscenities. Provoking danger with broken language and spoken anguish. Begging to get hurt, why would you ask to go through changes? Yes, Lord, life's a chessboard, master the angles. Control the tempo, be the one who holds the info. Acknowledge is just as deadly as machete swings. When spoken, the truth is as potent as that Medellin. While others swear the style is free, I just let it ring. Our time is undervalued, soldiers make us better kings. My fams on my shoulder, reaching after better things. Today I take the shot, for them I'd rather set the screen.
My mama told me follow my dreams. My daddy told me get it by any means. Stand tall, make him bow to a king. But I've evolved, you can see the resolve. Look in my eyes when you speaking to God.
Life and for those who we caught up in using what I was taught with the muse. I guess they call it proving I'm more than an artist. Penciling out my darkest while stenciling out a harvest. And storing what gets me from A to B, just like garages. Instrumental with collages. Envision what I've been drawn. Broadway to give you rhythm like the great Lena Horne. So bent on, found comfort in the storm. Find peace and on when you see them others perform. Organized chaos, I'll cast it like hey ya.
Yo, party people in the place to be. What's good? It's your number one Chief Rock in Knicks Universe, your main man, Uncle Freezy. I am joined by Lee Escobedo, my man. Lee, what's good, bro?
What's good, Uncle Freezy? Glad to be back for round two.
Round two
of our heavyweight conversation. Excited to talk Knicks and life.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. I have so many questions, right? So there were so many things that you said and stuck with me after the conversation. It's like, if we ever get a chance to do this again, man, I'm not gonna save anything for later. I'm not gonna have a verbal doggy bag, so to speak. And I'm just gonna ask everything and then, see where that goes. But hey, man, so how you been?
Overall, life is actually probably at its peak for me, if I have to keep it 100% and in context for the rest of my life. I've kind of mastered the art of eliminating stress that is within my control. So I've really, in the last 2 years, I had a pretty consequential breakup about 2 years ago. That it wasn't my decision at the time. I was, normally heartbroken over, but I really responded to it. I wanted to respond to it in a way in which I hadn't before. And I wanted to act differently at 38 than I did at 28. So when that happened, I really took the time to meditate, get closer with God, get closer with myself, figure out who I was as a human being, develop standards, develop lines in the sand that I'm not willing to cross or that I wouldn't want to cross, get into a certain kind of relationship, but also taking myself more seriously and really putting 100% into my writing and making a choice in my life that writing is what I wanted to do. It's what I wanted to be known for. And it's a legacy I wanted to leave behind.
Right. Hey, man, that's important, especially when people glean stuff off of you. Like when people are really impacted by your writing and the things inside of the writing, like nuance and things of that sort. People really pick up on the state of being in the writing, so to speak. I noticed that when I started doing Substacks, just, article here and there, nothing major. I'm not a writer like that. But I noticed when I do the Substacks that the Fritz, what's a good word to use for the Fritz? Give me a good word to use to say the things that come out of you. What's a good word, Fritz? So I got Fritz Alcindor in the chat. JM is in the chat. HRM is in the chat. Wilson Ding is in the chat. Salute y'all. So it's important, man, because what I realize is as I write about the Knicks, a lot of times I don't know if I write from a journalistic standpoint, which I should. And mostly I write from a fan standpoint, where if things are frustrating me, man, I just let that all out on paper or word, so to speak. So, yeah, man.
I can relate to that. My initial concentration of interest academically when I got into college was English. And I started figuring out very quickly, this is back in the mid to late 2000s, I couldn't really do much with that degree going out. I didn't want to teach at that time, didn't have any interest in get my master's or PhD and move into academia full-time as a professor. So I was like, what the hell am I going to do with this? I could work
Right.
at a used goods store, which was cool, but that's not a career. So I
Right.
pivoted. I had a friend that got me, she wrote an opinion piece. And I read that and I was like, this is interesting. So I wrote for the school paper, and that was kind of the start of writing as a journalist. But I could never come to an agreement on being objective. It's very, very hard for me to write in a news way, breaking news, where the voice is the voice of a publication, not your own. That
Right.
type of writing, some people are really drawn to that. Some people are really drawn to being what is called the fourth estate or the media of the country. That's not me. Every single thing I've written, and this has become more and more apparent as my life has gone on and the platform I've been on has gotten bigger, I have to put a certain element of myself, both good and bad, into my writing. I kind of have to like lay myself bare in a way in a piece, even if that piece is on the turnaround of the Houston Rockets under Ime Udoka. There's going to be a underlying subtext to that piece where I am kind of analyzing Udoka's second chance or Udoka's job as a coach to my own in life and within my small circles. Reflection is a big theme in a lot of my writing, and I can't separate that even if it's within the Knicks or sports.
Hey, that's a great way to put it. I have a question in line with what you're asking. So you believe in chances.
Yes.
All right. So how do you feel about Tom Thibodeau and his third coaching opportunity? But this occurred with our New York Knicks. How do you feel about Tom Thibodeau and his third chance and it being with our New York Knicks? How do you feel deep inside about him being here and what he's done, taking advantage of this chance?
Well, I have to answer that two ways. The first one is removing personal bias to how I analyze his opportunity, stripping myself away and my personal biases. He absolutely has should have a third opportunity to be a head coach, because the data and the eye test tells you that everywhere he goes, he makes that team better. He takes that team to the playoff where they haven't been. He's one of the best table setters or standard bearers in NBA history. There's only a few coaches, I think, who come into a direct organization and turn around into a playoff team and eventually contender. Chicago was contender, Minnesota was not. So absolutely. I mean, I don't think he's done anything in his juncture that he didn't ruin a player's career. I'm not placing Derrick Rose's injury on him. I think that's, again, that if you're doing that, you're coming in with an agenda. Derrick Rose isn't blaming Tom Thibodeau, so why should we?
Right.
And then on the second hand, if we talk about my own personal biases, but if I look at it from my own vision, I would prefer somebody else. Never been a fan of Tom Thibodeau as an option for this team. My original choice was Kenny Atkinson back when this was all. I used to take walks around my South Dallas, Oak Cliff neighborhood. I had this really long path, and I would think about all the different things in my head. I also talked about one of my mental illnesses. I have conversations with myself, mostly about basketball. Right. Sometimes it can be kind of interesting, and it makes a day go by. I'm always in good conversation about hoops when I'm talking to myself. So I broke down all the good and bad of Tibbs, all the good and bad at that time of Kenny Atkinson, and I thought what we needed then, that year one RJ, year one Randall, so on and so forth. Actually, year two for all of them. I thought we needed someone who could develop and would play the young players even through errors and through the valleys. And I wasn't really interested in all of a sudden turning around and being a playoff team or buying a championship like we've seen the Bulls try to do, the Suns try to do. I really wanted to be a steady, slow course. We kind of got that, oddly enough, with Tibbs, but we got that with playoffs in there as well. So I have overall really appreciated and respected the job he's done. I don't think that he has given us a stern reason as of yet for why he should not continue to do the job. But again, if he was fired tonight, if we got the notification, Woj, that he was fired, I would be shocked that did it right now. But there would be a side of me inside, cool, let's see who's up next.
Right. So you mentioned two things that kind of excited me, right? So the first thing you mentioned is having a conversation with yourself. Mm-hmm. And so my initial thought is, well, who can understand me better than I can understand myself, right? So there's that part of it. But the Derrick Rose thing is kind of like a rock in my emotional shoe, right? And the reason why it's a rock in my emotional shoe is that talent levels such as Derrick Rose are so rare. And I mean peak Derrick Rose. I mean 21-year-old Derrick Rose are so rare that when you get one, you kind of want to live in that moment because that person will be the person that you're telling generations about, right? Now, for instance, Karl Anthony Towns is an all-star starter at center, and he's a great player. He's probably a Hall of Famer, right? But I'm not going to be telling my grandson about Cat, right? Because even though Cat is special, how special is he, right? And so even though Derrick Rose in his prime was not a Knick, he was a Chicago Bull, you can respect Derrick Rose as an opponent because the talent level was so great, kind of in that vein of, and I don't know if you know music or not, right? I'm just going to use this for an example, but it's kind of like a musician comes along and their talent is so transcendent that you're almost mimicking them in their daily life. And what I mean is insert recording artist here. For me, it's a guy like Jimi Hendrix, right? I know a lot of people won't appreciate him because he maybe has came along before such and such and such. But the fact that we're robbed of what Jimi Hendrix, Tupac, what Tupac could have been beyond his early 20s, right? And so you look at a Derrick Rose, you're like, what could Derrick Rose have been if he had not got struck by the injury? Notorious B.I.G., no matter who, whatever music, Jim Morrison, right? Anybody, just any young artist. Speaking of Jim Morrison, shout out to Val Kilmer. He passed away. Rest in peace, Val Kilmer. But he played the lead singer of The Doors. The Doors movie to me was kind of like one of those underrated. But anyway, on topic, the Derrick Rose injury was one of those, when it happened, you're like, oh no, does this mean I have a what could have been story? Now, I understand where you're coming from. It's not Tibbs' fault. And Derrick Rose did not point the finger at Tom Thibodeau, but Tom Thibodeau was complicit. Wasn't his fault, but he was there, right? And so the thing is, with guys like that, you're like, how come this certain thing always follows Tibbs? And so we follow the breadcrumb. So I didn't mean to take it there, but the Derrick Rose injury kind of reminds me of when an artist is so great, so young and so great, they hit you at a time in your life where you're ready to receive that thing, and that's the perfect fit for where you are in your life. So I can't blame Tibbs, but Tibbs, if you're watching, this better not happen with Jalen Brunson is all I'm saying.
First off, I just got the notification Dwight Howard has been elected as a first ballot Hall of Famer. Much congrats. Definitely deserved.
Yeah.
Dwight should have been top 75 all time, in my opinion. One of the great last great big men of the 21st century. Probably him and AD are the last great big men of the 21st century. I am also. I started in music. I've thrown a lot of shows, curated a lot of musical showcases, from hip hop to punk, metal, noise. Jimi Hendrix, one of the first artists I ever got into, and Access Boat of Love. Boat is Love is one of my favorite albums.
Are you saying that just because I like music? I mean, what's going on?
No. You can doodle me. Just doodle Lee Escobedo music. You'll see all my clips. The last one I wrote, I was doing a series of interviews for the Grammys and their website. So I interviewed very varied artists, from the Black Pumas to Animal Collective to Saucy Santana. I've interviewed all different kinds of musicians from different genres for Grammy. So yeah, I'm a huge music fan as well. And Jimi Hendrix, Access Bold as Love is a brilliant kind of prog rock, experimental acid rock. I love that shit. As someone who enjoys and appreciates the Third Eye. It's right up my
So how do
alley.
you feel? How do you feel about Traffic?
The band?
Yeah.
Yeah. John Barley, Toy Must Die.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I see you, Lee.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
One
My dad
favorite-
is
I'm sorry,
growing
man.
up, my dad was really, really big into record collection music. So my first foray, I found R&B on my own through school. So I think the first record I ever bought was Destiny Child debut album. Right.
Okay.
That was the first one because I liked Wyclef Jean. And
Right.
he named me that being no. That was Wyclef. Anyways. So
Right.
Jermaine Dupri. So I love that. Then on the other side, my dad taught me all about rock. So Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, The Doors, Traffic is one of his favorite bands. Bob Seger, Silver Bullet Band, Leonard Skinner, Doobie Brothers, Allman Brothers. Like that whole side, I learned from him.
Little Feet and
that's Jethro Tull. That's I got into that very, very, very early on.
Right.
So hell yeah, Traffic's a great band.
Yeah, man. One of the greatest lead singers of all time, man. Bro, nobody had a voice like Steve Winwood, brother. Steve Winwood is like, bro, there's a song, there's a song called Dear Mr. Fantasy, right? And I would advise, if you've never heard that song, bro, listen to Dear Mr. Fantasy, right? And when I first heard it, I was like, this can't be what I think I'm. Now, it's not like a Joe Cocker type of rendition or whatever. This is like something that starts like, bro, it takes you to a place, basically it takes you to a place.
That's how I feel about George Michael. George Michael is probably my favorite male vocalist ever.
Right.
And his music is unbelievable, especially the way that he was able to kind of elevate pop to more about a contemporary art form. Father Figure is, like, to me, an all-time American pop song. Really badass.
Right. Bro, the Tom Thibodeau thing, I have a thing in my heart for Tibbs, but then I have a thing that's not in my heart for Tibbs.
Yeah, I did want to respond to a couple of things that you said. Yes, agreed. Derrick Rose is probably one of the greatest what-if stories in NBA history. Definitely the greatest one of the 21st century within modernity. But I would push back on you. I don't think that Tibbs is complicit at all in that injury. And he also doesn't have a history before or after that of players becoming severely injured under his coaching. That has been this kind of weird like myth that's populated it's not substantiated by reality outside Derrick Rose. But if you look at this Knicks team, no one under his auspice on this Knicks team has had a severe career-threatening, enduring, or altering injury. Like, guys have stayed relatively healthy. That's enhanced with Casey Smith being brought in this past summer. But even before that, there hasn't been anyone, at least on the Knicks or Minnesota, I can think of, that really stripped their career with a severe injury, except for Derrick Rose. And those injuries that he sustained, he's the only one who has any correlation where there is kind of this like what you said, a complicit nature with the coach. No one says that about Kevin Durant when he was in Golden State and Steve Kerr. No one says that with Durant when he was in Brooklyn with, I can't remember who the coach was at that time, who was over the Nets. But Kawhi Leonard is not correlated with Popovich. It's only Derrick Rose and Tibbs.
I said it about Ben Simmons.
Yeah. Like, most people don't even know who Ben Simmons' coach was, Brett Brown. That correlation is not there. It's only Tibbs and Derrick Rose. I think that's kind of unfair. And a lot of it is also backed by the minutes. How many minutes and how his players are always at the top of the NBA in minutes as well. But that's not even true. It's really just the good ones. The bad Ronnie Brewer in Chicago wasn't top of the NBA in minutes at the time. It's the good ones, because he always wants to play the good players the most at all times.
That's a great point. But nobody's asking about Jabari Parker in Milwaukee.
Who would have been Jason Kidd, maybe?
Yeah, Jason Kidd. Kidd. And see, nobody's talking about Jabari Parker because it gave Chris Middleton the opportunity to come off the bench and play those minutes in Jabari Parker's stead. But Chris Middleton never gave him the opportunity to come back and take that job.
Right.
And that's why we don't speak about about Jabari Parker. But the thing about Tom Thibodeau, though, and I'm not saying this with any malice. The thing about it is the way that you handle accusations kind of makes folks try you in the court of public opinion. Like when you ask Tibbs about the minutes, he's like, "Hey, that's the way we do it here." Okay, all right. So you didn't mention that you're not playing certain guys certain minutes, and you just have a higher expectation level from guys that you know that you can do it, and you depend on those guys. You just say that's just the way we do it, and that goes into the reason why these narratives won't go away, right? I'm sorry. Go ahead, man.
No, I wasn't going to say anything.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, that's part of what I believe. Like, if you say things in a palatable and digestible way, then I think the court of public opinion would kind of lean more towards what he's saying as opposed to, "Hey, man, play through it. This is just how we do it, man. We're trying to set a culture."
That's a good point. Tom Thibodeau is definitely cut from the baby boomer cloth and the way that he handles and the reluctance to capitulate his personality and his game plan with the media that I think turns off a lot of younger generations watching him, especially the female fans. The overwhelming majority of female Knicks fans I see really hate Tom Thibodeau. I can't think of a video off the top of my head that are at least loud and pronounced that are huge Tom Thibodeau supporters on Twitter or other social media platforms. And I think the reason is because he kind of has this standoffish approach with his reasoning, where I think someone like Steve Kerr, who's a little bit younger than Tom Thibodeau, he's willing to make amends and allow for concessions when the back and forth dialogue that exists between the media and him when they're questioning his decision making. He's not someone that now he's very outspoken politically. But his political alignment it's very kind of like neoliberal, digestible points of view. He doesn't have anything that's really like shocking if you're already on the left, right? So he knows how to play the game very much so. He's very political in the way that he approaches the media. Tibbs is not. Tibbs is like talking to your grandparents about social issues. They're going to tell you exactly what they feel. They're probably going to be a little bit offensive when they say it. And they're going to repeat mantras that make themselves feel good about themselves and about the stances they take on arguments. That's Tom Thibodeau. And he rubs a lot of people, even a lot of young Knicks fans across Twitter that are Gen Z, really don't like Tom Thibodeau. They can't relate to his personality, and it reminds them of authority. And I think that's one of the reasons why he is so different than just about everyone else in the head coaches, as well as because of his age and the generation that he came from and who he was teaching, who he was taught by Jeff Van Gundy.
Right. No doubt. My thing with him is, so you mentioned the narratives that surround him that are false. I know there are narratives around him that are false, right? Not in what you just mentioned, right? Something totally different. I think the narrative around Tom Thibodeau that he doesn't make adjustments well or timely, I think is false. And the reason why I know that is because I've seen examples in game where he tried different things and it just didn't work with his personnel, and he scrapped it. Probably, I don't know if he scrapped it for the moment or if he scrapped it forever, right? But I'll give you the Cleveland game for an example. In the Cleveland game, for an example, right, his offensive philosophy was, instead of attacking the Cleveland Cavaliers from the top of the key, where either Allen or Mobley could help one or the other, he attacked from, say, a side angle, a wing angle, meaning pulling one guy away. And then if the other guy filled in behind him, that means on the backside of their defense, the Knicks could get an open three, right? So he tried that. The only thing is, once Cleveland found out that DeLon Wright his ball handling is rusty, let me put it that way. Once they found out his ball handling, it was rusty, they pressed him, and now the Knicks can't get into that set that Tom Thibodeau and his staff designed in order to attack the non-defenders, Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. So once you put pressure on the ball, you can't move it to get the OG Anunoby versus Max Strus matchup as much as you want, and you can't get the Mikal Bridges versus Donovan Mitchell matchup as much as you want, especially in the mid-range area, because once you pressure DeLon Wright, it takes you out of that set, takes time off the shot clock, right? And then now if he's giving up to Josh Hart is looking to give it up to another guard, and by that time, you're asking OG or Mikal Bridges to create a shot on the fly. I saw him make that adjustment, as opposed to running the high ball pick and roll at the top with Cat at the top of the key with a ball handler, where Cat has the choice to either roll or pop, right? With DeLon Wright, they decided to attack Cleveland in a different way. And for a while, it worked. For a while, the Knicks had a lead. But once Cleveland found out that DeLon Wright's handle is rusty, then you saw them take the lead and stretch on us. But for those that say Tom Thibodeau doesn't make adjustments, what they'll say is Cleveland went on a run and Tibbs did nothing to stop it, right? Which is false, because Tom Thibodeau actually came out punching first, attacking them on the offensively, looking to attack them. Cleveland found a way to stymie what they drew up. And Tom Thibodeau didn't have another player that can fill in for DeLon Wright in order for them to get the result that they want. Because initially, the Knicks got all types of three-point looks from Josh Hart and DeLon Wright, and they didn't take them. And they didn't take them because neither are confident three-point shooters, but you need both of them on the floor defensively. Yep. And so what that did is force OG, force Bridges, force Cat to make moves against set defenses, and it made it harder on those guys. Mm-hmm. So when people say that Tibbs doesn't make adjustments, I think he does make adjustments. I just think this year, his hands were tied so much with people in and out of the lineup that every time you try something, somebody would leave or somebody would return. And now you have to kind of get in. You ever had a car that wouldn't run and you would have to keep patting the gas to keep it going or whatever?
Almost every car I've ever had.
So that's the Knicks offense, basically, is what I'm describing. So when it's good, it's good. When it's not, it's not. So
I couldn't find many things you said I disagree with, mainly because you were talking facts. You were talking specifically about what Tom Thibodeau was running and what he was running to be innovative in this game. To your right, hit first so that we didn't have to crawl back into the game in late second quarter, early third, like we have against almost every other game against them, Boston and OKC. Right. I also want to make it clear that I see so many conversations, especially in the last month or two, online, on these YouTube channels, about adjustments, Tibbs and adjustments. He doesn't make them. We need a younger coach. The best teams have younger coaches. The worst teams also have younger coaches too. Yeah, but then it's important to maintain context. If you have a coach, then no matter who he goes up against, OKC, Boston, Cleveland, they always make the right read. They always make the right tweet. You're talking about Greg Popovich. You're talking about 1 in 30 coaches in the NBA. There are only a handful of people that are able to adjust no matter what the defense or offense is thrown at them. Those are called Hall of Fame, top 15 coaches of all time. Right. So if you don't have one of those, if you have someone tier 2 or tier 3, I would put Tibbs in tier 3 if we're talking about all-time coaches throughout the history of a league. Right. Tier 3 is pretty damn good because that tier that tier list goes down to about 20, right? And at the very bottom, you had David Fizdale, Derek Fisher, all those bums from the past that have Jeff Hornacek, right? He might be 19 to give him a little credit. But we have one of the best tacticians and one of the best overall talent developers in the NBA. He is just a very stubborn man. But as this generation doesn't understand nuance and doesn't understand accepting a person for all of their good and all their bad. They want people to fit in boxes. And that's why I love writing about the NBA, because so often than not, the NBA mirrors real life. We did this didactic thinking where we want people to fit into the boxes in which we need them for in order to provide us something in our life. Tom Thibodeau is a head coach. He comes with as much baggage, as much personal biases as we do as fans. The same way that we are watching the game with a bias while we're watching it, he is coaching with the same thing. We're all human beings. They're trying to make the best of what we have in front of us and do something great and leave a name behind. Thibodeau comes with his strengths and he comes with weaknesses. But to think that someone who has been around basketball for 35, 40 years doesn't know how to adjust, you are not watching the game of basketball. You are watching your personal narrative out on the court, and you're upset that you can't control the dials. That's completely different than watching a game of hoops and being able to call out, oh, they're running a Spain pick and roll right now. Oh, right now, look, OG Anunoby is doing a soft hedge defensively. Right. Those two are two very different things. So when I watch Tibbs, I have my grievances. I also understand more than likely than not, we're going to have a 50-win season and we're going to have a second round exit. Am I okay with that? No, but it's not just him that's going to just pass that. It's a team. It's Cat discovering to put his hands up at a bare minimum. Jalen Brunson discovering I can't hold the ball and be the highest on-ball usage point guard in the NBA when part of my job description is that other guys involved, I can't take the most dribbles. I can't have the highest usage, and I can't be one of the most ISO-driven players in the NBA. It also means Mikal Bridges can't be passive. He has to be more aggressive. Josh Hart has to hit his three. Leon has to work in the margins, has to negotiate under the CBA. Brock Aller has to find contracts that are team-friendly, make the last year a team option, make it a descending contract so that you get more space as the CBA expands, increases. It's the whole thing. It's the organization. It's the organism that acts to make us a better team, not just Tom Thibodeau changing up an offensive set, in the third quarter of a game against Cleveland. That doesn't dictate a success of a season. It's the entirety of the organization itself.
Right. Bro, absolutely. So for one, you can't change your offensive philosophy in season, right? It's impossible, right? Because guys put in so much work to learn certain things in an offense. When you change an offense, now guys don't even know where to be on the floor. The communication is off. Guys don't get into a groove. They can't anticipate where each other are going to be. And now everything is telegraphed, and now it's easy for the defense to pick up on, right? So the thing about Tibbs is the unfair thing. So I want to speak to the fair thing and the unfair thing. The unfair thing is a lot of, we played Boston and Cleveland early on, and we didn't have Ariel Hook Party because he was getting DMPs. We didn't have Mitchell Robinson due to injury. We didn't have Precious in the first 21 games due to injury. Our big man rotation basically was Cat and Jumpman, right? And while Cat is an all-star starter, Jumpman respectfully is below that. Respectfully, I like Jumpman, so I don't want to sully his name. He's not Cat, right? And so when you have guys out of the rotation, it's difficult to implement what you did in training camp because one of the guys you had in training camp, right, got injured the last day of preseason, right? The other guy, a guy that you had in training camp, dislocated his shoulder the last game of preseason. And so going into those first 21 games, you're like, hey, we plan to look like this. Now we have to look like this because of injuries, right? And then when those guys come back, now you're trying to get into a flow. And then other guys, Dukes McBride starts to miss games. Cameron Payne starts to miss games. And not major stuff, everybody. Not major stuff, but just enough to keep our chemistry off kilter a little bit. What I'll say to you is I think Tibbs did a heck of a job, right? I think Tibbs did a heck of a job navigating the early part of the season. Mitch being out, Shamet being out, Precious being out, because I don't think Shamet came back until like game 32, right? And so you're talking about rotation guys. 3 rotation guys are out, and you have to kind of ad hoc your way to in offense, lean on your guys, and hopefully those guys, all-stars, can carry you. Now, the thing I do blame Tibbs for, and this is his fault, is when those guys were out, he did not groom long-term replacements while those guys were out. That's a Tom Thibodeau thing, right? That's like letting your vegetables in your refrigerator go bad, and then you have to go out to eat Friday night, right? I mean, that's Tibbs' fault. We can't, nobody, Tibbs is in charge of the rotations. Does he put together a masterful defensive plan every night? Absolutely. Does it always work? No. But the preparation is there. And you can see the framework of him putting something together.
Really thinking about what you said and not just responding for the sake of responding.
It's a lot, bro.
I think it's a little half and half. Tibbs definitely deserves responsibility for most of the things that go wrong with the New York Knicks. I agree with you there. Again, I'm not a Tibbs fan. I did paint it as a Tibbs defender because I'm no longer signed to fire Tibbs. I used to go on SNY with Dexter with a sign, fire Tibbs.
Right.
Because this is back in the Johnny Bryant days. This was like the Fournier season, Kimball Walker season. But I think he's done a pretty good job in the postseason after that. Thinking about playing the young players when guys go down, man, I think there are many ways to develop players to be long-term replacements. Playing in NBA games in garbage time or against the Wizards is one. Is it the best? It's probably also the best. Yes. I think you can also do that by having them star and play heavy minutes and heavy roles in the G League and having them practice against the current starters in practice as well. And we know those things are happening because Tibbs is saying they're happening, and Leon Rose has confirmed that's happening as well. You can just turn on a G League any day and see our rookies constantly starting in those games and dominate as well. But I do think the process is a marathon, not a race. Growth is as well. And the guys that we brought in, I don't think any of them are ready to be rotation players in year one. I mean, let's just be honest. Guys who are chosen in the back of the first round and the second round typically are not ready year one to be in a rotation, much less starting. And all these players have some great strengths. Each one of them might even have an elite strength. Kyle Kolek, playmaking, the hot porty, offensive awareness, what's his name? Patome, being able to dart up and down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Kevin McCullough, offensive rebounding, defense, driving to the hoop. They have some elite skill sets, but there's also a lot to be desired. Tyler Kolek, you can't, I mean, with Payne's down and DeLon Wright's down or Medusa's down, do you really trust him to already play in the pick and roll sets and defend the pick and roll with Cat as his partner when we're one of the worst in the NBA at that? That's barbecue chicken for every single point guard in the NBA. That's something you have to mitigate against and understand it's going to harm you. You're going to be giving up hemorrhaging points because he will get hunted and pick and roll. But Komdadi, I haven't seen enough to say he's confident taking those 3-point shots. And right now, Landry Shamet is taking it with confidence and making them right now. I'm not seeing anything from Patome Dadiot or Kevin McCullough Jr. that tells me they're ready to do that in an NBA level. A closeout in the G League is different than a closeout in the NBA against starters. It is a completely different rhythm of anticipation and completely different rhythm of physicality. I mean, these are guys who 40,000 people, they don't give a shit. They do this on every night, and they do it against the best players. They do it against LeBron, Kawhi, Trey Murphy. And you think they're not going to do it against Patome Dadiot and Kevin McCullough Jr.? Let's just keep it real. Let's keep it factual. So I agree with you that Tom Thibodeau is to blame. I don't think this specific set of rookies was ready to be a part of the rotation in year one.
Right. So I'm push back on that just a little bit. My pushback is neither was Landry Shamet. Landry Shamet's first 25 games with the Knicks after injury, he looked terrible. And not because he wasn't professional, because he is. And not because he didn't have a great work ethic, because he does. Right. But clearly missing all of that time had him out of rhythm. right? He knew where to be, knew what to do, but his rhythm wasn't there. And it takes players time to get back into a rhythm after you spend so much time out due to injury, right? Out due to injury, man. It's like when we go to the gym. I bet you a bunch of y'all go to the gym and get on the treadmill and do your 2 miles or whatever on the treadmill, and you probably have a rhythm, like you can do those 2 miles or whatever. But then when you leave there and get on the Stairmaster, you still want to do the same distance, right? You still want to. It's a different thing. Like the thing is different. My thing with Shamet is the Knicks had to let that man play to get his rhythm, because all the other combinations look terrible. Like for instance, we're having a conversation right now at the beginning of April, and we've already forgotten about Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan used to get a few of those minutes, and Matt Ryan didn't look the part.
Cheats.
Yep. And so, there was moments where Pacom Dadier got like a few minutes, and he didn't look the part. And so if you're Tibbs, you're like, do I sacrifice my starters for this young guy's development? I think that is the question that we should be asking ourselves about what Tibbs is thinking. Is Tom Thibodeau thinking, or was Tom Thibodeau thinking, can I sacrifice my starters to develop a young guy that may or may not be in a rotation when these injured guys come back? No, you don't put a student teacher in the place of a real teacher, right? You put a substitute teacher in the place of a real teacher, especially if it's long-term, right? And so I agree, but I do feel like when we had a dirt that wing, Dadier should have had a role, right? At a bare minimum, the Matt Ryan, Landry Shamet role of play a few minutes, defend. We don't expect anything from you offensively. Your job is to go out here and defend and maybe put up a few threes if the ball makes it back to you and you're open. That's it. You feel me? Like we're not asking. I wasn't asking Tom Thibodeau to develop Pacom Dadier or Tyler Kolek to be on the all rookie team, rookie of the year. But hey, can you hold down this spot here? You see what this spot does all year. You watch it. You've been in training camp with us. You know what I expect from my wing off the bench. Can you be my wing off the bench in a pinch, right? Until you earn that job, right? And if they're not ready, then they're not ready. But that would be the message that I'm sending, that Tibbs should be sending to them, in my opinion. Now, the Tyler Kolek thing, bro, when you have 3 point guards hurt, I mean, you got to play Kolek, right?
The way you just framed that argument around Pacom Dadier, I agree with everything you said. But that was a really strong argument. You made a case to where what you were asking for is not for Pacom Dadier to be playing the current Shamet role, but to be playing the Shamet role when Shamet was kind of in a doghouse. And Tibbs, you could tell his frustration was high with his inability and reluctance to shoot. So his minutes were staggered, sometimes between 8 to 4 to 6. He wasn't getting double digit. Deuce's minutes were going up, Payne's minutes were going up, and Shamet was still in single digits. That time, I agree. That should have been an opportunity for Pacom Dadier in that role. Overall, overarching, I do think that what Shamet always gave you and what Pacom has not given us in limited opportunity, and I would say overall in G League, he's been pretty solid at this, but not at an NBA level, is defense. Specifically transition defense. Transition defense was something we really struggled with. And October, November, December, early January, we were really bad. And Shamet was one of the few bright spots. I thought him and Payne have been one of the two most consistent defenders on the team this season. And Shamet has, at least, if it's not a backdoor cut, which is one of Shamet's weaknesses, defending that, and also defending the lob, everything else, pick and roll, transition, man on man, the little bit of zone that Tibbs has sprinkled in, I think he's been above average in all regards. I think that's what's kept him in the rotation, where we saw Fournier jerked out of the rotation, replace someone else. We saw Grimes jerked out in place of someone else, Devo. I think that's what's kept Shamet in that role, is that Pacom has not showed a consistent enough basis at an NBA level Not garbage time against other garbage players or G League, but in NBA situations, you keep your man in front of him. That's what Tibbs respects the most. I think that's why Shamet has earned his keep. But I agree. That was a really bad stretch. Maybe I want to say it might have been February when Shamet was at his worst as a shooter. Patom Dadiak should have been playing those single-digit minutes a game. 100% agree.
Yep. And you don't know. And so here's the thing. I'm a huge Pakom Dadiak fan, right? I was a Dadiak fan before we called his name on draft night, right? I was actually a fan of Pakom Dadiak back in November of 23, October, I'll say November of 23, right? Because he's like a moldable piece of clay. You don't know what he's going to be. Pakom Dadiak is going to turn into whatever the coach desires from him, right? It's kind of like when the Pacers drafted Paul George. They didn't know if Paul George was going to be a slick handling shooting guard. Was he going to be a stretch four? Come to find out, Paul George was kind of a mix of all of these things that you want a 6'8", 6'9" player to be, right? Every player doesn't develop like that. All right, Paul George had 2 years of college, I think. All right, Pakom Dadiak won't even be 20 until this summer, I think, something like that. So, but my other thing too with Tom Thibodeau, I think he gets a bad rap because he'll try something and it'll fail, and all we talk about is the end result, but not the try itself.
Agreed.
Right. And so Knicks fans will be like, oh, he doesn't adjust. He's not creative. But when he is creative and it works, we're like, hey, Jalen Brunson did it. But when it fails, we blame Tom Thibodeau. And that's kind of fair and unfair. And it's fair in the sense that that's a coach's life, right? When the Bulls win a championship, they're going to say, yay, Michael Jordan did it. They're not going to say Phil Jackson. But when Michael Jordan loses, yeah, or the front office, right. But when the Bulls
Reisendorf.
Yeah, exactly. And when the Bulls lose, they're gonna point straight to Phil Jackson, and that's what Knicks fans do. I don't blame them because that is part and parcel what a coach should expect from fans. It's who we are. But Tibbs have tried some things, and chat for the sake of not being too basketball-y, right? But in that Cleveland game, you saw OG Anunoby go to the other side of the court and set down screens so that he can come around the top of the key, catch the ball in motion, and head to the rim instead of catching the ball static and then relying on bursts to get to the rim. See, I'm sorry, go ahead, bro.
I thought you actually saw an increased use of motion and emphasis on motion in that game against Cleveland. And that's kind of been ramping up in the last month since we've gotten some of our pieces back, specifically Mitchell Robinson. But I've really, Mitch's screen setting, to me, he's the best on the team, has been the best on the team. Only maybe Ihart was better at setting the screen at the later tenure of Ihart's career with the Knicks. He started out a rough screener himself. But him and Mitch, that's what made them so dangerous as a center duo. Now, once Mitch is back, I think you've been seeing a lot of more off-ball strain setting, like you just mentioned with OG Anunoby, and that was purposeful, I think, for Tibbs not to over-rely on a Karl-Anthony Towns 50-point night, but to try to have an equal distribution across the board with Brunson out of guys getting the opportunity to catch the ball. Since we don't have Brunson to supposedly set them up, they would have opportunities to not have to be in ISO situations and take tough, low-percentage, difficult shots. That was smart, and you're right. Tibbs isn't credit for that. Tibbs has been running some fairly complicated offense as of late and really solid out of bounds plays and add timeout plays as well. I think all of those things are steadily increasing. You're seeing some of the action he's going to be employing in the postseason, which makes me optimistic for us to maybe give the Boston Celtics a shot in the second round. I think right now we're going to lose, but with Jalen Brunson, anything is possible. So I think at the end of the day, the talent that Leon Rose has assembled on this roster, and I think you and I might disagree on just how good Karl-Anthony Towns is. But the amount of talent we have on here with an increased aggressively OG Anunoby, a efficient Mikal Bridges, Hart is the one I'm worried about the most with the three ball. Cat and Brunson, I actually think the talent level is good enough to supersede mistakes that Tom Thibodeau might make, not or calling the wrong play or not calling the right play in a playoff scenario.
Every coach makes mistakes.
Yep.
One. Right. Every coach looks at analytics and guesses that a team is going to do a certain thing when they get to a comfortable spot, and the team mixes it up. They're not wrong because of strategically wrong. They're correct. It's just the other team also has analytics, and they also know what the defense wants to do, and they also plan accordingly, right? And so what I would say, if we're speaking about the talent on this team, I'm gonna say 1 through. I think this is the best. I think this is the best team of this century.
Yes, by far.
Right. And then one of the other things, right? So our starting 5 is great. Mitch is great. Deuce is great. So we have maybe 7 guys that are great NBA players in their role. But one of the things Knicks fans don't speak to is that the Knicks have 5 rookies on this roster at one time. Right. And so when you think about the 5 rookies, you're thinking, man, who's the 5th rookie? It doesn't matter, because if you have 4 rookies, that's a lot. 3 rookies, you're like, okay, we're turning this thing into a kindergarten class. 2 rookies, you might expect if your second round pick is good, right? But when you have 5 rookies, including Anton Watson, Ariel Hukporti, Kev McCullough, Pacom Dadier, Ariel Hukporti, let me see.
Tyler Kolek,
TKO, yeah. Yeah, you're talking about all these guys, man. That's a lot of guys. And so when I saw the signing of PJ Tucker, I knew what that signing was about. That signing was about having someone to chaperone the kindergarten field trip, basically. Nothing on the court, because PJ Tucker hasn't done anything on the court in what? The NBA Finals, the Bucks and Suns NBA Finals, maybe.
Yeah.
He hadn't been a role player since that Bucks Suns Finals, right? But if you're talking about adding strong leadership, somebody at the back end of the bench, so what? PJ Tucker is a chaperone, so what? But the reason why I mentioned that is you have 6 guys at the end of the bench. You have 7 guys that you really depend on, right? That middle group absolutely has to step up and be an elite middle group in order for us to be competitive with Boston. Because on nights where we don't get anything from Precious, Shamet, and Cameron Payne, they're going to dog walk us.
Yep.
Right? They're going to do chat. The difference between the Knicks and the Boston Celtics is Peyton Pritchard and Gordon Hayward versus Cameron Payne, Landry Shamet, and Precious.
I think you mean Sam Hauser, but I would also.
Who did I call him? Did I call him Ben?
You said Gordon Hayward, a former Celtic.
I'm sorry. Man,
it's okay. I knew what you meant. I would also.
The haircut is what is always.
For sure. They have a lot in common. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
And I would also add Al Horford, man. I think Boston's best 5-man lineup, if I saw correctly, in terms of net rating, has Al Horford at the 5, not Kristaps Porzingis, which is crazy. A lot of that has to do with Horford's ability to guard the level, being able to guard the perimeter, where KP is most comfortable in drop. Horford can play drop or at the level. He's a really solid, seamless double teamer, able to hedge, keep his man in the paint from getting to the basket and be able to close on the perimeter. He's a really solid switchable defender. And Lou Kornet, too. Lou Kornet's been playing a lot better as of late. Doesn't have to give you a 3-ball from the perimeter, but becoming a very effective rim protector, very effective shot blocker. So, again, we're talking about the best team in the NBA. We're talking about the champion for a reason. It's hard to compare ourselves to that and be like, that's Tibbs' fault, or that's Brunson's fault, or that's Cat's fault. Every team has,
or that's Leon Rose's fault.
Right. There's only one superior team. They are a superior team for a reason. The results show it. They're the only one who's won a championship in the last two years that we have to get through in the East. It's simple, rational logic. So I don't get too upset, too low, too high during the regular season. It would be nice for us to beat some of these really good teams, but you have to account for if Brunson's not there, that matters. If Mitchell Robinson's not there and it's the Cavs, that matters. Like you have to think about the X's and O's of the situation, the pieces you have at your disposal to fully judge whether we played hard enough or if we were capable of winning those games. Last night we had a shot. Then the talent differential took over. And once the talent differential took over, which was their bench in comparison to ours, we lost. I agree 100%. Those two guys you named specifically, Shamet and Precious, are going to be the keys for us to get past Boston. Because I have full faith in the first 7 guys you named to all play at least to expectation. Precious, I am very concerned that he will not play to expectation. And Shamet, I am concerned offensively that he will not play to expectation.
My thing with Precious is, so I have 2 things. My thing with Precious is he plays his best ball when he knows he's going to play significant minutes, right? When Mitch is out, the other night Mitch was out, Precious was 13-8.
Yep.
Right? When Cat is out, Precious is going to put up numbers, right? My thing is when Precious is the third big, right? Not knowing when he's going to enter the game, there's some uncertainty. And the unfortunate thing about Precious is, though that's his mindset, Precious Achiuwa is not a, and this is my guy. Shout out to all my Nigerians out there. Precious is not a starter. Precious is not a 6-man type guy for the long term. He's not a long-term starter. He's not a 28 per minute guy that can impact winning regularly, right? But when you give him the shot to go in and play, he accumulates stats. My concern with Landry Shamet was, and may continue to be in the future, he and Cameron Payne have a tough time playing together
100%.
because a lot of their shots come from the same place. And when one is occupying their sweet spot, the other is in an uncomfortable spot, and you can't depend on him to provide offense. Now, who's the odd man out on that is Shamet, because Cameron Payne is the backup point guard, and you want him to be comfortable because Cameron Payne is one twisted ankle away from being your starting point guard, right? So you can't accommodate Shamet offensively. You have to say, hey, big boy, you got to get in where you fit in. You got to find a way to help us offensively because his playmaking isn't there really. His driving is not there really. His cutting is not there really. But his perimeter offense is there on some nights.
I think we're really going to struggle to win a championship without certain level of miracle happening until we improve the pick and roll defense. It's going to be damn near impossible to win a chip with a top 5 worst defender positionally at both the point and the 5. It's going to be very, very, when those two are in the starting lineup together, it's going to be really tough. That's not a worry of Cleveland because they have Jared Allen. That's not a worry of Boston because they have Drew Holiday, and then you have either Porzingis or Al Horford. That's not a worry of OKC because SGA is one of the top 5 perimeter defenders in the NBA. Chet can play and drop. Ihart can play and drop. Both cover the pick and roll. So I just named the top 3 teams that we don't have to get past in order to win a chip. You could even argue that it's not an issue for the Lakers because Luka Doncic is playing very good defense right now at the point of attack for them. And then in their back line, Jackson Hayes is good enough to be a defender. He's not even Cat bad at guarding the pick and roll. Cat is one of the worst at guarding PNR. So I see 3 possible solutions on what we can do in a marginal move this summer. I think these are the 3 solutions. I really do. I thought about this again, conversation with myself, out for a walk. I narrowed down to 3 options. I want to run these by you to see what you think, which one you would go with. The first one, keep the starting 5 the same, upgrade the Precious Achiuwa. That your conversation about Achiuwa, Shamet, and Payne led me into this train of thinking, so I wanted to follow this line. So Precious is upgrade on the bench. Say it's Bobby Portis now. Is Bobby Portis free agent, signs a cheap enough contract Fritz, don't kill me if the math doesn't work. But let's just say he's a guy, right? The starting five stays the same. Now you have Bobby. You still are compromised defensively, the pick and roll with the starters, which means you depend on significant minutes of Cat at the 4, pair with Bobby Portis, or Cat on the bench with Bobby Portis at the 5 next to OG Anunoby, right? There's still issues there. Second option, you sign a new starting 3. So I top of my head, I don't know who it to be. Let's say Herb Jones Jr., like that type of player, really good. I'm not saying he's available, that type, right? At the 3, which moves Hart to the bench. Now you're starting 5. Now you got 3 defensive aces who can all switch, can all shoot threes, who can all clear off the dribble. You still have a compromised Cat and Brunson. You also have another compromise issue now. Now the bench has no spacing with Hart at the 3-4 and Mitch at the 5. So that presents its own conundrum there. That it's kind of Precious and Mitch. It may be even worse, in my opinion, because Hart refuses to take threes. Precious Brits threes, right? So you have your own issues. The third one, my favorite, you move Mitchell Robinson into that starting 5 position. I know what everyone's going to say, but Mitch can't be healthy the whole season. It's Mitch / Hot Porty, which now gives Hot Porty a chance. We saw this already, where Tibbs was going with Hot Porty over Sims. So now Mitch or Hot Porty is in the starting lineup. The other 4 starters stay the same. Hart is moved to the bench, and then you go out and you sign a stretch 5. Maybe it's still Bobby Portis. Maybe Bobby Portis small ball 5. Now you add spacing to Hart, to where Hart can be kind of the one-man fast break, the secondary facilitator, but you have someone who can both defend the rim and space the floor with a consistent 3 ball. Not an imaginary iHeart 3 ball, but a real 3 ball. Someone who shoots 4 or 5 a game from the center position.
Brook Lopez.
Power forward. A what?
A Brook Lopez.
Yes. That's who I was thinking of. Brook Lopez would be the guy we would sign. Of those 3 scenarios, which one do you think is the most likely, and which one would you like the most?
I like all 3. Right? I like all 3. Because for one, the Bobby Portis thing is kind of Bobby Portis is the stone that the builder refused, right? Everybody knows the story, right? The builder is building, he sees the stone, it looks odd and out of place, he throws it away, builds the building, a stone is missing. He's like, I need a stone. He goes to the scrap heap, finds a stone that he threw away, puts it in place, and it's a perfect fit. Bobby Portis. Bobby
100%
Portis,
agree. I 100% agree with you.
So Bobby Portis is that piece because his defense is going to be tough. He's a tough-minded defensive guy, right? But offensively, your 5-out offense would be dynamic because if you mess around and swing the ball to Bobby Portis being guarded by Kristaps Porzingis on the perimeter, it's barbecue chicken.
Yeah.
Right? If you get Wemby guarding Bobby Portis on the perimeter, even though Wemby's a great defender, it's barbecue chicken because guys that tall, you get them going one direction and go a different direction. They have to switch their hips. Guys 7 foot tall, that's not easy for them to do. Right? Bobby Portis, to me, is a great fit. Brook Lopez is a great fit if he understands that he's not the Brooklyn Nets Brook Lopez anymore and is willing to do some starting, some off the bench, keeping him healthy for the playoff run, right? If he's ready for that Marc Gasol role in Toronto, so to speak, right? I have a key to fixing the pick and roll defense for you.
Let's hear it.
All right. I think you can easily fix the pick and roll defense by having whoever is in drop press as soon as the pick and roll man turns the corner. Because the pick and roll man legitimately is going to turn the corner, rub his man off the screen. That's how we were taught in high school. For everybody that remembers running pick and roll, how you're taught when they put the chair out there and you legit have to get low around the chair to scrape your man off of you so that you can have that advantage going to. Imagine that man turning the corner. Mikal Bridges is in trail and Cat is in no man's land. Do I press up or do I stay back? Well, if you do nothing, you give them 2 options, right? If you drop, you give up the floater, mid-range shot all game, right? If you press, they're going to either throw the lob over your head, right? Or they're going to pass to whoever the other guy is, right? So Cat's thing and why he's so terrible is he's not a decision maker. My thing would be telling Cat, as soon as you see him scrape his man, you go press and we'll recover behind you. Now, the unfortunate thing about that is the person that covers behind him in most cases is Jalen Brunson or Josh Hart. And that's the reason why Cat doesn't necessarily go out there and press early, because he knows if he gets beat, he can't recover, right? He's done. Now, Mitch can press and recover because he's talented like that. Cat is not that guy that can press. The second thing to that, when teams get into pick and roll, blitz it. As soon as they show you the pick and roll look, send an extra guy to trap the ball handler and make them swing that ball around and take time off the shot clock so that their best offensive player will get the ball with 7 or 8 seconds, with 7 or 8 seconds to ISO against Mikal Bridges or OG Anunoby. I like my chances. Right. So, but if we're strictly talking about not the on the court adjustment that Tibbs can make in his scheme, and we're talking about a personnel issue, right, then I agree 100% with you. I don't know if the names have to be Bobby Portis or has to be Brook Lopez, but I agree that it should be a player of that archetype, right? Whether it's Bobby Portis or some other 6'9" guy, 6'10" guy that can give you some center minutes, some 4 minutes, a guy that's an adequate passer, decent shooter, decent ball handler, somewhat of a bucket. I would be comfortable with either of those options.
You made some interesting points. On the press, we've seen a little bit of that recently. I point back to the Clippers game where
Right.
I saw Cat doing I saw both Cat and Mitchell Robinson pressing on the pick and roll, and it led to a lot of lob opportunities. Cat was out there, and this is the issue that you come up when you play with a point guard who's really good at tossing lobs. And
Right.
James Harden is one of the best. Now, we don't have to worry about seeing James Harden in the playoff, but we do have to worry about seeing possibly Darius Garland, Derek White, Drew Holiday, guys who are used to
Trae Young. You may even see Trae Young. We don't know yet.
Very true. Cade Cunningham in the first round. The only team we don't have to worry about that is Milwaukee. They don't really have a lob throw at the point guard position with Dame out, thankfully, right? The Knicks have deserved an easy first round. I hope we did Milwaukee. But that's the issue with the press. And we tried that against the Clippers, and Zubac went to town on the lobs. Now, when Mitch was out there, Mitch was blowing up a lot of those lobs because, as you said, he's an elite defender. He's very diverse in the way that he can defend a pick and roll. And he's kind of like Wemby-ish almost. His ability to rotate and to defend the lob against the incoming ball handler too. Right. So it's give and take. That's more of a matchup scheme that you would absolutely employ against Milwaukee. But I don't think I would employ that if we play in Detroit and Jalen Duren's on the bat side. I don't think I'm going to do that. I'm going to take my chances and stay and drop. And then that, Cade Cunningham, also a great pull-up mid-range shooter, a great floater. It's tough. I mean, talk about Cade Cunningham, maybe a top 3-4 point guard in the NBA. It's tough. On the other side, you said with the blitz, that works too, but it also counters a lot of the principles the Knicks have started to really rely on defending the three-point line. We've gotten infinitely better.
Especially the corners.
Exactly. And that it's so funny that no one has talked about that, how much we've improved at staying in front of our man. We were getting a lot of bad luck. I remember Alan Hahn talking about it one time that the shots we're giving up is almost the same ratio as other teams, but the opposing team are making their shots in MSG. And that what was skewing the stat against our favor was because we weren't necessarily not closing out worse than other teams. We were just closing out, and those players were hitting them against us more than any other team in the NBA. That's hard to stop. So the blitzing, I would prefer that over the press, just because I'm more comfortable with us being able to close out on the perimeter, especially a Bridges or an OG or a Hart in that soft double, than I am pressing, allowing for a Cade Cunningham, LaMelo Ball, or something like that to just oop us all day.
Right. So with the blitz, once they get into it, I'm not going to blitz. Right. But when I see the screener coming I'm going to blitz.
Like a preliminary one.
Right. Because
Okay.
once they get into it, once you're committed, you're in it. Right. Once that guy turns the corner and you send two guys, you're opening up at least two wide open 3-pointers on the floor. So you don't want to you don't even want to have a tag man, right? I hate the tag man concept, right? You're doubling every shot that goes into the paint with the threat of giving up a corner three, right? I think the tag man is I know it works. I just don't like it.
But remember, brothers, again, it's all about the matchups. What you're describing can work against Detroit unless Detroit has both Tim Hardaway and Malik Beasley on the floor. If those two are on the floor, don't do it. Because you're talking about Malik Beasley, damn near might be the best 3-point volume shooter in the NBA. And if Timmy has the ball, he's going to shoot that thing. Timmy ain't looking to pass it once he catches it. But if it's Ron Holland out there in conjunction with maybe Thompson, hell yeah, wrote that shit. But you're talking about 31, 32% 3-point shooters.
You have to live with that, right? But the thing that makes Detroit dangerous, though, is that they have mismatches at in the pick and roll that you can't account for, right? The one guy is 6'6", 6'7", 235 pounds with quickness and brute strength that's going to get to his spot. The other guy, his backup, is a blur that always torches the Knicks, and Dennis Schroeder, right? So you're talking about as soon as they commit to a pick and roll, you have to have in your mind, what am I going to do here, right? Am I going to squat and force Cade to shoot, force Schroeder to shoot and out-rebound those guys, right? Or am I going to press up on those guys and force them to make split-second decisions in the pick and roll based on the look that we're going to give them? I don't want to do that, because if you're talking about guys making split-second decisions, you're talking about two guys that one time were franchise point guards, and you don't become a franchise point guard by not knowing how to make micro split-second decisions. You don't get that far without that, right? There's a difference between DeLon Wright and Jalen Brunson, right? You don't get there by not being able to do it, right? And so if we're speaking to the very short term on how to fix pick and roll coverage, I'm going to say Tom Thibodeau is going to have a long summer to figure out the weaknesses in his defense. And he's smart enough. We have to give this dude credit, bro. You don't coach this long in the league by not being able to adjust. So I think he's smart enough to come up to figure out what's wrong with his defense, right? In terms of the addition, what we also have to remember is the more people you bring in, the more you have to redefine your rotation.
Right. And
then when you redefine your rotation, now you have to depend on what the chemistry looks like, right? And then you have to depend on how long is it going to take for Brook Lopez to adjust to playing with Josh Hart and Karl-Anthony Towns, maybe even Mitch, right? So you have to think about all these different things. The same thing that Cat and Bridges go through right now, building chemistry, knowing where to be, what's his sweet spot, and another, what's his sweet spot versus what he tells you his sweet spot is, right? Like Cat is very comfortable shooting the corner three. I don't want Cat shooting corner threes, right? Because of a multitude of reasons. The referees look at your feet going out of bounds. How many times have you seen the ref blow the whistle and do this right here about somebody stepped on the out of bounds line? You see it like 3 or 4 times a game, right? And then you put Cat over there in those size 19s. I don't want to see Cat over there, right? Because I don't want him thinking about his feet, and I don't want him shooting 22-foot 2-pointers because he had a toe on the line, right?
You see what we've done here, Freezy? We've actually distilled the issue down to the original problem that has caused a chain reaction in all of the pick and roll coverage, which is Karl-Anthony Towns' decision-making on the defensive end. Yeah. I have always been critical of his ability to read and react efficiently. It's not so much about the way that he uses his body to defend the rim. It's just the simple idea of, okay, I see the ball handler coming at me. Let me at least put my arms up in the air to deflect his vantage points at the rim. That has been a failing over and over and over again. He has not shown an ability to know what we were just talking about. When to press, when to blitz, when to call for the blitz, the double, when to drop, when to get back in the drop consistently throughout his entire career. This is not a micro sample of the Knicks. This is him for his entire career. So much so that Minnesota forfeited their future to bring in a real pick and roll defender in Rudy Gobert and move Karl-Anthony Towns to the 4. This, to me, is the root cause of our issues, is his decision making. Less so than physical tools, lateral movement, things that are still deficient for sure. There's lateral movement for sure, but the root of it is his decision making mentally on how to adjust to what the offense is doing. And until we fix that, I don't think we're going to be in a real, like, to where we can win the way Boston wins or win the way that the Denver wins, win on sheer ability and dominance. It's going to take a lot of things breaking our way and a lot of things going right for us to finally win. And the other question I want to say is there was other point. There was a moment early on where the first 2 months of the season, you saw Tom Thibodeau employing that pre-switch with OG Anunoby, where OG Anunoby was coming in for Karl-Anthony Towns, and Karl-Anthony Towns was kind of rotating out of the paint, and OG was becoming the last line defense rim protector. I think OG got really sick of that really fast. It was affecting his endurance and conditioning on the offensive end. He was too tired. His three-point shot wasn't falling early in the season. He wasn't getting the same looks on ball. And he said, I'm doing all this to repair the defense. My best strength as a free safety isn't being utilized to run the passing lanes and be an on-ball hawk. I think once OG said, enough of this shit, and they rotated him out, you really started seeing the pressure fall on Karl-Anthony Towns to make quick reads and decision-making in the pick and roll, and he has shown he can't do it. Yeah,
I think I'm not going to say Cat is soft. I'm going to say Karl-Anthony Towns doesn't care about defense.
Fair.
Not at the rim. Not at the rim.
Agreed. One-on-one, he loves. He loves the thing on an island. If it's ESPN and he's the faint joker in the fourth quarter, he'll play some incredible one-on-one defense. Yeah. He did it against Kevin Durant against the Suns. But as a rim protector, he hates it.
And the reason why I think he doesn't care is because rim protectors have a propensity to pick up ticky-tack fouls.
Yep.
And if you pick up ticky-tack fouls, right? And if you pick up ticky-tack fouls on one end and you don't get foul calls on the other end, it just ruins your thing. You're like, why am I even down here?
Yep.
Right? I'd raise my hand down here. They call fouls on me. I go down there and they put me in the Russian sickle and they say nothing. I'm not playing. No, I'm not risking that on. And so I think both of those. And I mentioned this in an article I wrote called Cat Got Your Tongue. And every time I say Cat Got Your Tongue, it makes me laugh because I spelled it with, the K-A-T referring to cat. But it's an article about Tom Thibodeau not getting technical fouls. Right. And the reason, so I think if it were a thing where Tom Thibodeau would be more vocal, not more vocal, but so my thing is, how does a dude yell so much that at the press conference, in the game presser, his voice is gone, but he doesn't have a tech? Who is he yelling at that much? Is he yelling at the players? Is he yelling at the refs? Because if you're yelling that much during the game and you're not getting a tech, man, listen, I saw Popovich walk out on the floor during the game and get teched. They almost threw him out of the game because Tim Duncan was getting accosted, right? Tom Thibodeau saw Cat get hit in the Detroit game. Beef Stew fouled Cat on a breakaway, broke one of those bones in his hand, and Cat was doing his hand under, and Tom Thibodeau was talking to the other coaches. I was like, hey, you know what? Body language and things like that impacts what players do also, right? Right. So it's one of those things where I feel like you want to inspire certain people, man. Go to bat for them, man. Go to bat for them. So that's my thing. I think Cat doesn't play defense down there because I think Cat only feels like he's appreciated for offense. And if we only appreciate for him for offense, so what? It's going to get him to the Hall of Fame. So what?
Yeah, that's why I advocate for Mitchell Robinson to be put into his starting lineup. And for those 40, 35 games that Mitch is probably guaranteed to be out every year, knock on wood, he isn't. Ariel Hotporty takes that role and you sign a backup who can shoot the three for that 5 spot. Again, that's why I mentioned both Portis and Lopez.
Right. Okay. Hey, so before I get out of here, man, I want to ask you this, and this may be a rabbit hole, but I think we all like Alice in Wonderland. Everybody, that's where the rabbit hole thing comes from. Everybody,
I love
it. So
that's my shit.
How do you feel about the guy from Dallas keeping OG Anunoby healthy all season?
His name is Casey Smith. I used to work at a flower shop in a portion of Dallas where a lot of the Mavs lived, and he came in pretty regularly, and I got to know him. He's a very friendly guy, and when I taught ball with him, I was always amazed at how he talked to a coach. He really knew the game. My first assumption was that he knew the basketball from the medical profession and about health and conditioning and avoiding injuries. But he talked about plays. He was talking about some shit that was way above my head that time. This is like going back 10 years ago. So I was always impressed by his acumen, even though I wasn't too full of like what his background was, if he played or coached at any level himself. But the proof is in the pudding, man. Look at Dallas. Look at Dirk's career. And the longevity that he had in the second half of his career into his twilight. He was a sustained player, putting up decent numbers and playing a pretty good amount of games in his career because of the risk mitigation that Casey Smith was employing and knowing how to using him differently as he evolved. I think that was something that he experienced, but Luka Doncic too, and Jalen Brunson early in his career with Dallas. There's a reason why Casey Smith went to New York. Because Jalen Brunson was advocating for him to come to New York. He knew what he had to do for the health and sustainability of the rest of the roster. And look what happened to Dallas as soon as Casey Smith left. There are some freak accidents that I'm not going to blame on the medical staff, like Kyrie Irving, right? But Kyrie Irving, in Tom Thibodeau style, was playing career-high minutes after the Luka Doncic trade, carrying that team on his back, and then he tears his ACL. I think there's a conjunction with that. At his age of 32, 33, he shouldn't be carrying that heavy of a load. And at the point guard position, as really the only primary ball handler on that team. Then AD, I also don't blame on him too. But Dante Exum, PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, Derek Lively, all these injuries that have happened throughout the season, there is a correlation there between not having Casey Smith mitigating through planning and recovery those injuries and him being in New York, where we had the most healthiest starting 5 this season.
Yeah, pretty much. Outside of a Jalen Brunson freak injury. Jalen Brunson's injury was a freak injury. It wasn't a fatigue injury, right? Agreed. In my opinion, right?
Agreed.
Now OG Anunoby's sprained foot, I'm not for sure because it looked weird by the time the camera panned back to him. He was already hurt, so we missed how he got hurt. But OG missed 3 or 4 games? And he was back. And OG Anunoby has been known to be injury prone. But now with this new guy in tow, he's healthy, mostly. Right? Mitchell Robinson, coming back from injury, hasn't re-injured himself. And for those that think that, oh man, Uncle Freezy's trolling, nah, y'all. Remember, when Mitchell Robinson gets hurt and he comes back from injury, Mitch usually does something to re-injure himself, whether it's long-term or short-term, right? Mitchell Robinson, for the most part, is healthy after coming back from injury. Precious had a hamstring, he's back. My concern now is Deuce. What's up with Deuce missing all these games, man? You think, is Deuce getting too many minutes? Is his body not built for a large number of is he not meant to be a high-level role player?
Oh man, don't feel qualified to say yes or no. I don't think we've seen enough from him. He's so young in his career. I would find it hard to believe that would come into play so early at this point with him with the Knicks. And he hasn't really ever been a full-time starter too. So not just have his minutes been fairly normal for someone drafted where he was and being part of the rotation as he has been, but he's also not playing against starting five. He's playing mostly against bench guys. There have been sometimes he's closed and has been the point of attack ball hawk on defense and closing possessions. But I don't think he's played a career that warrants that level of injuries like Gordon Hayward, the amount of usage he had in Utah before he went to Boston. Kind of made sense he got injured to a certain degree. This seems very early to be able to regulate it to, his body just can't handle it. Also because he's not even shooting a whole lot of shots or coming off of a lot of strains and moving like Bridges. Most of his effort comes on defensive end. His opportunities offensively, even though he's added motion to his shot this year, there's some catch and shoot opportunities the last 2 seasons. So I don't feel qualified to blame it on that. I am concerned about that injury because it's been the most smoke screen we've seen this season on the severity of it. What's going on? What kind of groin injury is it? Is it even a groin injury? When's he coming back? I think today was the first time I saw any level of speculation on his return, possibly for Sunday. I saw that him, Payne, and Brunson all practiced. Great sign, right? Honestly, Casey Smith has always favored on the sign of extra rest in order and not rush someone back early. So I think that's why Mitchell Robinson took as long as he did. And I also think it's why Deuce McBride has not came back for the last 6 to 10 games to make sure he's fully 100% healthy for the playoffs.
Okay. Duly noted. Man, this was fun, man.
Oh, hell yeah, bro. I love talking ball with you, man.
Yeah, this is fun. I didn't get a chance to talk to you about Mikal Bridges being a very good pick and roll handler going in one direction and being lousy going in another direction.
We say that for part 3.
Yeah, Mikal Bridges is very good pick and roll going right, going left. Tibbs may as well get me to do it. So what does that mean? I'm not for sure. What that means is during the summer he's going to have to work on it.
Yeah.
So hey y'all, everybody, do this. Everybody in the chat, do this for me. Make sure you Google Lee to check out his stuff. Right. Support Lee Escobedo and all of his ventures, because it's not like you're supporting him, you're actually getting something from it. You know what I'm saying? Getting something to grow on, getting writings, getting work with introspection, right? That you can put yourself. Lee is basically putting himself in your place and writing something to your sensibilities because he shares some of the same sensibilities that you do, right? So check him out. Also hit that like button. To my international audience that's growing out there, hey, I'm getting used to you guys. I'm not for sure what to say. Listen, I have number 1 Chief Rocka up here in a different language, right? Make sure y'all hit that like button, right? Make sure y'all subscribe to the channel, right? Make sure you come back. Check us out. Check out Lee on the Nick of Time show. Check out Fritz Alcindor, Jay Ellis, everybody over there. Make sure y'all check them out and subscribe. Lee, you got anything before we go, bro?
Appreciate that, Unc. I drop in the chat a link to my newest piece for Texas Monthly. I'm really big into the AAU ball scene here in Dallas. It's my first year really heavily into it, but in the last couple of years, I've been a scout on the UIL level, meaning on the high school, the normal public high school. I do a lot of playoff watching, attending the UIL tournament every year, which is our state championship. And DFW has become one of the meccas for producing NBA talent. We mentioned Cade Cunningham earlier. Detroit has 3 guys from DFW: Marcus Sasser from Red Oak, Ron Holland from Duncanville, and then Cade Cunningham from Arlington Martin. 3 guys on one team. So we're expected to have 3 or 4 lottery, 2 lottery.
Larry Johnson, Larry Jackson.
Larry Johnson's from my neighborhood, Oak Cliff. Shout out Larry Johnson, man.
Shout out to Dallas, man.
LJ and Dennis Rodman, also one of my favorite basketball players, also from my neighborhood. As you can tell, I'm a huge fan of Dennis Rodman. Everything about Dennis Rodman, that's my guy, man. Anyways, I wrote about how this UIL tournament that I've been attending for the last 24 years has been kind of the backbone of my father and I's relationship, and has allowed for a lot of intimate conversation between us, me learning about him as a man, more than just my father. And this last one that we went to, I kind of had an epiphany conversation where I really started understanding him more as a person, his motivations, and realized all these frustrations I had with him not understanding me, that I was actually the cause of it. I was the firewall in a way of not having that level of empathy. And when I had that epiphany, we were having a conversation about my parents' divorce and what he was going through from his point of view. I've always looked at him as the victim of that situation as a child, but I didn't understand what my dad was going through. And that really opened my eyes. And I really saw so many of our fights and arguments over the last couple of years through his perspective. And it really it shook me and refocused my attention on making sure I utilize him and appreciate him for the rest of his years that he has here on earth with me. So I put all that into an article, both about how great DFW is for producing NBA talent through this tournament, but also my father and I's special relationship and how basketball has kind of saved us and given us something to bond over. So I dropped that link in the chat. You can, I mean, there's might be paywall behind that link, but you can find a paywall remover and then 12-foot ladder, whatever, and find a way to read it without paying or signing up. But I hope everyone reads it. And if you walk away from anything, if you want to follow me, that's great. If you want to doodle me every now and then to see new articles, fantastic. But please read that and realize that the people that are in your life, the ones you didn't choose, but have stuck by you forever, your siblings, your parents, your grandparents, please hold them close and take advantage of your relationship if you have them in your life. Do not let that go to waste, and find something you can bond on that is apolitical, that you guys not have to fight over, and make that kind of, one of the things you always gravitate back to when life throws its chaos at you.
Right. So yeah, definitely. So I was thinking, I want to clip something. So I'm going to ask you this. I'm going to ask you this, and I promise we can get out of here on that. Right. If the Knicks were a novel, what genre would it be? Tragedy, drama, redemption? What would it be in your eyes? If the Knicks were a novel, would it be a tragedy, a comedy, redemption, action? What genre? Would sci-fi?
I would akin it to a Shakespearean tragedy that has the potential for a redemption arc at the end. The last 20 years under Dolan, I would say it's been like H.P. Lovecraft horror. It's been almost otherworldly. I got into it 2002, right off the Eastern Conference Finals, and I was like, "Hell yeah, blue and orange, top market, fun
this is
team."
Every year. We could do this every year, baby.
Bro, I was like, "Oh, this is what I signed up for." Antonio Medice, this guy's supposed to be good.
Right.
Exhibition game. I hurt his knee. What's going on? Wait, actually, I lost his ass.
What does that even mean?
Bro, then the Moochie Norris trade and Zeke, and I was like, holy! I mean, it was a horror of like biblical proportions, like some revelation shit, and just how bad it was. But it really taught me the importance of endurance, and that endurance I've held. Me and my father, who here in Dallas before social media, only had each other. So again, basketball has always played a big part in us being close to one another, because there's always a team of two, me and him, and the Knicks against the world. Internet, YouTube opened that up to where I realized it was actually an ecosystem, and I'm very grateful for that. But I've never lost that underdog mentality, that me against the world mentality with me and my pop. So I think about like True Detective, this great like H.P. Lovecraft horror. Like there's this great insidious plan that just incubates a place, a time, a people that you can't escape. It's an otherworldly horror, and that's how the Knicks have felt over the last 20 years. But Leon Rhodes that came in and changed that. So who knows, man? He could be ushering in a new era where all of a sudden the tragedy turns into a comedy of riches, and now all of a sudden we get that one chip is all we need for us to be ushered into Valhalla, into those golden gates. Man.
Bro, you said Valhalla when I was thinking Thor. What's going on? You're on the same wavelength.
Listen, man. I just need, before my pops passes, I need to be able to hug him while Mike Breen is saying to Walt Clyde Frazier, "We finally did it, brother. Like, here's that Knicks championship." Once I have that, fade to black.
Hey, man, fade to black, bro. Once we get that, we'll be good. So I want to do one other thing real quick before we go. Everybody, so since we committed to becoming one of the big boys in Knicks universe, I had so Lee wouldn't know anything about this, but so we had a struggle with YouTube. I think we were I don't want to say anything bad and get back on their bad side, right? YouTube, if you're watching, hey, we're partners, baby. But I think for a couple of years we may have been on The Blacklist. Let me just say that. Great TV show, by the way, if you like great acting. So, but I think we may have been there. I've been communicating with some folks, and just want to let y'all know the past couple of shows. I think we've probably had. Let me see. So the last couple of shows we've had 2,000 plus views on both. One of these numbers looks strange to me, so I'm not gonna get into that. I think that might be glitchy, but so in the last 2 shows we've had about 2,000 views. I think that's because we've been opened up into the international audience. So to all our international people, if this is your first time here, please come back. I'm begging. Come enjoy this Knicks content. On that note, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button. Thank you to Lee. Peace to the chat, and salute to my guy, Jay Ellis, who's probably somewhere working overtime on his 4th job.
Man,
peace,
I love
everybody.
that guy.
Yeah.
Peace.
Yeah. Peace, y'all.